Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by Congressional reporter Juliegrace Brufke. Juliegrace, the big news obviously involved former President Donald Trump. Got a lot of reaction from Republicans on Capitol Hill when Mar-a-Lago was raided. A lot of people questioning the Biden administration on this. What was the tenor, particularly among the Republicans on Capitol Hill, of their responses to this?
Absolutely. So I think kind of Republicans, kind of all different factions of the caucus, you even saw guys that voted for impeachment like Peter Meyer and John Katko kind of coming out against the way that raid was conducted. So I think it's definitely going to continue to be a topic as election season heats up, and I think you've seen more conservatives kind of pushing for Trump to hop in the race there.
Right.
But I spoke with Congressman Jim Banks. He had a group of Republican Study Committee members up at meeting with Trump in New Jersey the day after the raid, and they definitely kind of encouraged him to kind of keep fighting back and kind of assured that they're definitely going to launch investigations next year into everything that kind of happened behind the scenes there before that happened.
Right. So you talked to Jim Banks, and he chairs the Republican Study Committee, which is a conservative caucus among House Republicans. There have been a lot of Republicans who've been concerned about the idea that President Trump might declare for 2024 before the midterm elections, but it seems like Banks' group had different feedback for Trump.
Banks is definitely one of Trump's top most vocal allies, one of his most ardent defenders up there. So I feel like it's not totally surprising there. And he's a close ally with Kevin McCarthy, who also is a very vocal Trump supporter. So,
Right.
I feel like you've kind of seen a lot of members on the Senate side a little more quiet on the matter.
Sure.
Things are looking better for Republicans in the House side than the Senate side for taking back the majority. So I think in some of the swinger states, there's more of a concern over in the upper chamber.
Sure, and obviously the relationship between Trump and Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell isn't quite the same as the relationship between Kevin McCarthy and former President Trump.
Definitely a very different dynamic. I feel like McCarthy and Trump have kind of had their ups and downs, but overall a more cordial relationship. You've got Trump releasing statements calling McConnell an old crow regularly, so it's definitely a different kind of state of play there.
Right, we'll have to see who eats Old Crow in November. But there are other sort of dynamics in play among Republican leadership, and it's not just the 2024 aspirants who are sort of jockeying for power. There are people in the House, assuming Republicans win back the majority, who are kind of jockeying for different leadership positions. Talk a little bit about what you've found.
So right now, the whip position seems to be kind of the most crowded race there. I mean, it's a position that doesn't actually officially exist yet, since they haven't taken back the majority. It would be the number 3 position. Steve Scalise, currently the current minority whip, hasn't officially endorsed Drew Ferguson, but that's his deputy whip, the guy he tapped to be his top person working on his team, and it's kind of helping where he is there. But Kevin McCarthy, from a lot of members I've talked to, have said that he's kind of pushing for Jim Banks in that role. One of his top informal advisors, lobbyists, held a fundraiser recently, and a lot of members kind of interpreted that as backing him and wanting him on that leadership team. But NRCC Chairman Tom Emmer indicated to members recently that he plans to get in there, so that kind of changes the dynamics there. A lot of members have told me that given his relationship with incoming freshmen, the amount of money he's raised and helping people get elected, kind of it's hard to, if they really sweep things come November, not give him that job given his role.
Right. So Emmer is the chairman of the NRCC, which is the House Republicans' campaign arm. So they play a pretty big role in recruiting candidates in competitive races. They play a big role in fundraising for those candidates, identifying which districts to try to contest to win them. So assuming they do win the majority, a lot of loyalty among some of the new members would have been purchased. Might not be the right word for it, but he would have obtained that.
Yeah, I feel like that relationship's kind of already established in advance of, leadership elections usually take place within a few new weeks of a new Congress, so already having those relationships established can't hurt. But Ferguson got in the race early. Jim Banks has been making calls for a while, so Emmer's main pitch to members was kind of, don't commit to anybody quite yet, because I'm planning to get in there, but my focus is still on taking back the House.
So in theory, if they win back the House, that bumps Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy up to House Speaker. It bumps Minority Whip Steve Scalise to Majority Leader. So it creates this opening at Whip. Now that if everybody just got bumped up a rung, you'd be looking at Elise Stefanik, who's chair of the conference, currently third-ranking Republican. But clearly, this whip position, there's a lot more contention about who's going to, not just everybody waiting their turn,
So
I should say.
Yeah, I've probably talked to maybe 10 different members about kind of her trajectory, and it sounds like she's definitely not going to get into this whip race, and things could always change. It's still early, but whether she'll stay on as conference chair, she previously pledged to the Freedom Caucus that she would only serve one term in that role, but it seems like she's kind of considering that, and she's also discussed potentially taking over as chair of the Ed and Labor Committee, which Virginia Fox would need a waiver to stay in there, which she's also kind of advocating for. So a lot of moving parts, but it'll be interesting to see how things pan out since people are kind of hopping into all these races early.
Right. I mean, conference chair has set some people up for future leadership positions. Dick Armey was a conference chair, became majority leader. John Boehner was a conference chair, became Speaker of the House. Other people stay in that role for more extended periods of time. But if Republicans take back the House, that does really create sort of a free-for-all for some of these leadership positions.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard freshman Byron Donalds, he's discussed potentially hopping in there. Kevin McCarthy, he praised Ashley Hinson, a Republican member from Iowa, saying who's got journalism experience, saying she could be a good face to be kind of face of messaging for the party for them. So it'll be interesting to see who hops in there, but yeah, it's still a lot of moving parts to see where things pan out there.
Because there is the Hill dynamic of it, of the relationships you've built on the Hill and the coalitions you can build in the conference, and just what you've done in terms of getting people elected and bills passed. But then there is, as you mentioned, just the sort of public face of the party component. And it's a party that's trying to win back suburban women voters. It's a party that's trying to make inroad among Black and Hispanic voters. So there are things you can do in terms of the demographic profiles of some of the members to highlight certain people to amplify that message.
And I definitely think there are a lot of different factors that members are taking into consideration. The optics of not having a woman in leadership is definitely something that's come up quite a bit. So where that kind of fits in, because there will be the NRCC race too. I know that Rich Hudson, there have been a couple members that have hopped in there. Darren LaHood are currently vying for that. Whether someone else hops into that race could also happen. So it'll be interesting to see how things make up. Obviously, Kevin McCarthy and Steve Scalise were kind of seen as rivals last time around for the top Republican spot. They seem to have kind of mended things a little bit there, but most of the members I talked to said that they think McCarthy is probably kind of wants to have his guys more so than Scalise allies kind of on his team there.
And so if they win the majority, the second they get there, they're going to immediately be defending the majority in what will be a presidential election year.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be fascinating, especially I feel like what the GOP field looks like, whether or not Trump runs, which it looks like he does. It seems like a lot of the moderates are kind of leaving the House GOP conference, so I think it'll be a little bit more Trumpian from what things look like from primaries. But yeah, the dynamics are going to be interesting to watch.
In some cases, they've been essentially thrown out because they're losing their primaries to Trump-endorsed primary challengers.
We saw Jamie Herrera Butler, Peter Meyer recently, and Liz Cheney, who was kind of seen as a potential contender to potentially be Speaker just a couple years back, her poll numbers are not looking great for her next week.
That's
I think so far it's only been 2 of the members that voted for impeachment that have kind of survived these primaries, David Valadao in California and Dan Newhouse. Yeah,
2 of 10 up to this point in districts that are not super conservative.
I think Democrats, I mean, we saw them with Peter Meyer's race kind of dumping money in to boost his Trump-backed candidates as they kind of see those seats as areas where they might be able to pick up a little ground in a year that's kind of historically not, the conditions aren't great for them. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they move with that. I know Sean Patrick Maloney said that they're open to doing that in other races, so it's going to be interesting to see how some of these pan out.
So we see a red wave coming. I mean, a trickle is really all they need because the Democrats' majority is not very big. But
I mean, every GOP lawmaker I've talked to is feeling very good about it on the House side, a little more reserved on the Senate side on how things pan out there. But they're feeling good. I mean, I think inflation, I mean, the numbers were better for Democrats today, so I think they were happy about that. They're about to go vote on this huge reconciliation bill, which they're going to go tout back home and hope that that's able to give them a boost. But yeah, some of these swing seats, I think it's going to be pretty steep uphill climb given Biden's proven numbers.
So surf's up in the House, but it's no beach day in the Senate. Thank you, Juliegrace.
Thanks.
You can read Juliegrace and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.